Why women respect you more when you walk away peacefully, psychology tricks. Sometimes walking away is not losing love, it's finally choosing yourself. Most men spend years learning the wrong lesson about women. They believe respect is earned by explaining more, loving harder, or fighting to be understood. They think strength is persistence, that holding on proves character, and that walking away means failure. But life teaches a harsher truth. Women do not respect the man who pleads for reassurance. They do not respect the man who argues endlessly for clarity. They do not respect the man who sacrifices his dignity just to keep a connection alive. They may feel compassion for him, they may feel warmth, nostalgia, even guilt. But respect is different. Respect is reserved for the man who knows when to step back, calmly, quietly, without anger or drama. A peaceful departure speaks louder than any emotional speech ever could. When a man walks away without bitterness, without desperation, without trying to convince her of his worth, something shifts. Because he is no longer reacting, he is deciding. And a man who chooses his peace over chaos becomes a man she cannot control, cannot define, and cannot forget. His absence carries weight, not because he disappeared, but because he left with self-respect intact. It forces her to confront a truth she may not have been ready to face. He wanted her, but he did not need her. Most men break when they feel a woman pulling away. They chase harder. They over-explain. They invest more while receiving less. They abandon themselves trying to rescue a connection that is already imbalanced. And in doing so, they lose the very thing that once made them visible. Nothing erodes respect faster than a man who gives up his identity just to remain chosen. But the man who can walk away peacefully, without guilt, without fear, without resentment, communicates something entirely different. His silence becomes a statement. His distance becomes a mirror. His exit becomes a lesson. She senses it immediately. This is not a man dependent on approval. This is not a man negotiating his value. This is not a man afraid of being alone. This is a man capable of loving deeply while still choosing himself. Walking away peacefully is not weakness. It is discipline. It is clarity. It is courage. It means understanding a truth most men learn too late. Losing her is painful, but losing yourself is permanent. A calm exit leaves no room for excuses. It exposes imbalance. It forces accountability. And it reveals something unexpected. A man who will not fight for a place in someone's life if it costs him his self-respect. The uncomfortable truth is this: women respect the man who chooses peace over proximity, the man who leaves when he is no longer valued, the man who stays only where effort is mutual. And the moment she realizes you can walk away without breaking is the moment she stops underestimating you forever. Before we continue, remember this: real transformation doesn't happen through watching alone. It happens through environment, discipline, and brotherhood. If these words have opened your eyes, what comes next will rebuild your mindset completely. This isn't just information. It's a lifelong community of men mastering emotional control, self-respect, attraction, and purpose. You don't join for a month. You don't pay endlessly. You enroll once and grow for life. If you're serious about becoming a man who chooses peace, strength, and direction, the next step is waiting for you. Let's go deeper. Section number 1, the power of peaceful departure. A man needs to understand this as early as possible, or he will learn it much later through quiet moments of regret. Respect is not created by effort alone. Effort without self-respect turns into noise, and noise never earns admiration. So don't assume that loyalty, kindness, patience, or consistency automatically raise your value. Those qualities matter, but they only shine when they rest on a foundation of emotional self-mastery. That is the calm inner authority that says, I know who I am, and I don't chase what no longer meets me halfway. This is where the power of a peaceful departure begins. A woman often doesn't judge you by what you say, but by how you handle loss, tension, and uncertainty. When you can walk away without shaking, without threats, without dramatic silence, without emotional bargaining, you send a message stronger than any explanation. A calm withdrawal says this clearly: You are not afraid to lose what no longer aligns with you. And that signal reaches deep into female psychology. Desperation never creates respect, discipline does. So don't try harder when the connection starts to fade. Don't flood her phone with reassurance. Don't constantly prove your worth. Don't bend your identity to keep up with her shifting emotions. Every one of those reactions quietly communicates that you are negotiating your self-value in real time. And negotiation never creates attraction. It slowly erodes respect. That erosion is subtle, not dramatic, often happening before she even understands why her feelings have changed. When your fear of losing her becomes greater than the respect you have for yourself, the imbalance becomes visible. And imbalance never feels safe. It doesn't feel steady. It doesn't feel reliable. So be the man who notices distance and responds with clarity instead of panic, with stillness instead of over-explaining. The man who can step back calmly does something rare. He shows that his emotional center is not outsourced. He shows that his peace does not depend on being chosen in every moment. He remains himself even when the relationship wobbles. That touches something deep in female psychology because it breaks an expectation she didn't realize she had. The expectation that you would resist, negotiate, plead, or collapse. When you don't, when you speak less and stand firmer inside, she is forced to face a new reality. She is not the axis of your emotional world. That realization can feel unsettling, not because you punished her, but because you revealed a kind of strength that cannot be controlled or rushed. Be clear about this. Walking away peacefully is not calculated silence. It is not absence used as manipulation. It is inner alignment expressed through action. And alignment is attractive. It shows that your heart is open but not unprotected. Your love is genuine but not self-sacrificing. You value connection, but never above your own well-being. That is what leaves an imprint, because it creates contrast, and contrast forces reflection. Reflection leads to reassessment, especially when a woman expects emotional resistance and instead meets composure. Composure doesn't invite arguments, it invites thought, and thought is where respect is born. Don't explain yourself into exhaustion. Don't demand clarity when your values have already answered you. Don't stay where your presence is no longer appreciated. When you walk away with your identity intact, you become a mirror she cannot ignore. A mirror that reflects what she avoided seeing, the imbalance, the distance, the effort that was taken for granted. And because you don't push your version of the story, she is left alone with her own. That quiet confrontation often becomes an awakening she never expected. The man who walks away peacefully is not seeking ownership, validation, or emotional negotiation. He seeks alignment, and when alignment is gone, he chooses himself without bitterness, without blame, without drama. That choice is not rejection. It is leadership, leadership of the self first, because you must lead your standards before anyone else can respect them. Many men misunderstand how to fall in love, believing love is maintained through pressure. It isn't. Love lasts through mutual regard, and mutual regard disappears the moment you abandon yourself to be chosen. So be firm, be calm, be selective. A man who can let go without breaking shows a level of emotional maturity that rises above surface-level psychology tricks. True influence does not come from tactics. It comes from consistency between values and behavior. When your actions reflect self-respect, they naturally align with female psychology, not as a formula, but as a felt truth. And that truth lingers. A woman may forget what you said. She may forget what you tried to prove. But she will remember how it felt when you chose peace over pursuit, dignity over panic, and self-respect over emotional bargaining. That memory becomes powerful precisely because it was quiet. It didn't demand attention, it didn't chase, it simply stood there. And in that stillness, respect grows, attraction recalibrates, and sometimes love returns in a deeper form. Not because you chased it, but because you gave it space to recognize you. That is how to fall in love without losing yourself. That is why the man who can walk away peacefully becomes unforgettable. Not through force, not through manipulation, not through games, but by honoring himself at the moment it matters most. Section number 2, the collapse of entitlement. When a man walks away loudly, she dismisses him. When he walks away in anger, she redirects the blame. When he walks away emotionally overwhelmed, she explains the situation away in her own mind. But when a man walks away peacefully, something entirely different happens, something far more important. Her sense of entitlement begins to collapse, not because he punished her, not because he made a scene, but because he removed himself without asking for permission. That quiet decision carries weight. A woman does not lose respect simply because you leave. She loses respect because of how you leave. Leave in chaos, and you become part of the chaos. Leave in frustration, and you become the story she tells herself to stay comfortable. Leave in emotional attachment, and you become predictable. But leave with calm dignity, steady posture, and no emotional debris left behind. And you are labeled only one thing: the man she misjudged. That realization lands slowly, but it lands deep. Most women grow accustomed to the comfort of male pursuit, not in a calculated way, in a familiar way. The steady check-ins, the eagerness to smooth things over, the readiness to reassure at the first sign of discomfort. The emotional labor men perform quietly because they fear losing the connection. Over time, this pattern creates something subtle, an unconscious expectation, the belief that you will always be available, always responsive, always willing to invest even when the effort is uneven, not because she demands it out loud, but because it has never been challenged. Comfort turns into assumption. Assumption turns into entitlement, and entitlement thrives only when it goes untested. This is where the peaceful departure changes everything. When you walk away without anger, without accusation, without emotional bargaining, the structure holding that entitlement together begins to crack. Your absence becomes a shock, not because it is dramatic, but because it is unexpected. Your silence disrupts her emotional routine. Your lack of pursuit removes the familiar reassurance she subconsciously relied on. Suddenly, the dynamic no longer moves on autopilot. Suddenly, she is forced to notice what she once took for granted. That is not punishment. That is clarity. Walking away peacefully removes every excuse she once used to avoid accountability. She cannot blame your tone because you didn't argue. She cannot blame your reaction because you didn't react. She cannot blame drama because you didn't create any. She cannot blame confusion because you were clear in your actions. And she cannot blame emotional volatility because you left calmly. When all distractions are gone, only one variable remains: herself. This is why a peaceful departure hits differently. It doesn't provoke defensiveness, it provokes reflection. Reflection is uncomfortable when it arrives uninvited. Questions begin to surface quietly. Was I giving as much as he was? Did I assume he would always stay? Did I value his presence properly? These questions are not born from fear. They are born from awareness, and awareness reshapes perception. Your calm exit shows her without speeches or ultimatums that you were never dependent on her choices to feel grounded. You were not clinging to her attention. You were not willing to sacrifice your peace just to remain close. Your value was not attached to her approval. Your identity was not built around being chosen. That message lands harder than any confrontation ever could. The collapse of entitlement does not diminish her. It sharpens her awareness. For the first time, she sees you without the filter of assumption. For the first time, she understands that your effort was a choice, not a guarantee. For the first time, she realizes that losing you is not an abstract idea. It is a real outcome created by her own behavior. That realization changes the emotional math. The man she assumed would always remain becomes the man whose absence now carries weight. The man she believed needed her becomes the man she now understands valued her, but valued himself more. The man she overlooked becomes the man she respects. This is where the idea of the high-value man is often misunderstood. It is not about status, not about money, not about performance. It is about self-governance. A high-value man does not beg for reciprocity. He observes it. He does not threaten departure. He simply chooses it when alignment is gone. That choice communicates masculine energy in its most grounded form: calm, stable, self-directed. This is what allows a man to attract women without chasing them. Not through pressure, not through tactics, but through presence and boundaries. Don't confuse peaceful departure with indifference. It is not coldness. It is not avoidance. It is respect expressed through restraint. Be clear about this. You can care deeply and still walk away calmly. You can value connection and still choose distance when respect fades. That is not contradiction. That is maturity. You must understand that entitlement survives only where consequences are absent, and consequences do not require confrontation. Sometimes they require silence and motion in the opposite direction. When a man leaves peacefully, he does not close the door with force. He leaves it exactly where it is and walks through it without looking back. That image matters because it signals finality without hostility. It tells her that you are not leaving to be chased. You are leaving to remain aligned with yourself. That distinction is crucial. It shifts the power dynamic without aggression. It resets the emotional field, and in that reset, respect has room to grow. This is also why attempts to attract women through constant availability fail over time. Availability without boundaries becomes invisible. Effort without standards becomes expected. Masculine energy is not loud. It is contained. It does not argue for its worth. It demonstrates it through decisions. And the decision to walk away peacefully is one of the clearest demonstrations a man can make. Be the man who does not announce his exit. Be the man who does not dramatize his disappointment. Be the man who does not linger where he is no longer met with care. That is not withdrawal. That is discernment. You must remember this. Entitlement collapses when access is no longer automatic, and access should never be automatic to a man who knows his value. A peaceful departure does not just end a connection. It ends assumptions. It ends emotional shortcuts. It ends the belief that effort will always be there regardless of how it is treated. And when that belief ends, respect begins. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. If this message resonated with you, don't just nod and move on. Take a stand. Like the video, subscribe for more clarity and self-respect, and share it with a man who needs to hear this. Then comment below and lock it in your mind. Comment to remember, I don't argue for respect. I walk away in peace. Section number 3, the silent mirror. When a man chooses to walk away peacefully, without anger, without drama, and without the need to explain himself again and again, something rare begins to happen, something powerful, something deeply rooted in Old Stoic wisdom. Calm withdrawal does what arguments never can. It becomes a silent mirror. And that mirror does not reflect your flaws. It reflects the dynamic itself. This is the moment when her perception starts to change, not because you demanded understanding, not because you forced closure, but because silence removes the noise that once protected illusions. When you step back with clarity, the emotional cushioning disappears. She is left alone with reality, and reality speaks clearly. When a man explains, she defends. When he argues, she resists. When he tries to fix everything, she pulls away. When he proves his value, it is often taken for granted. But when he becomes calm and silent, awareness begins. Silence does not invite debate. Silence invites reflection. In modern life, where constant communication is expected and emotional reactions are normalized, restraint stands out. Your calm distance feels unfamiliar, even unsettling, because it forces introspection instead of reaction. It removes distraction, it removes excuses, it removes emotional fog. She begins to notice the absence of your warmth, the absence of your consistency, the absence of the emotional effort you once gave freely. And this absence is not felt as punishment. It is felt as contrast, a contrast between what existed and what is now missing. Your silence reveals the imbalance that once existed, the imbalance she may have dismissed before. Moments where effort was uneven, moments where emotional availability declined, moments where respect softened because your presence absorbed the consequences. Now, without your steady energy, those moments resurface with clarity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Walking away peacefully is not revenge. It is alignment. It is choosing self-command over emotional chaos. It is choosing dignity over explanation. Your calm exit removes defense mechanisms. Without arguments, conflict cannot be blamed. Without emotional reactions, instability cannot be assigned to you. Without pursuit, dependence cannot be assumed. Without pressure, control cannot be projected. Silence collapses these narratives. Truth remains. This is why calm withdrawal carries psychological weight. It forces honesty. And honesty forces growth, not immediately, but inevitably. She begins replaying moments differently. Moments she once overlooked. Times when warmth turned distant. Times when effort was expected rather than appreciated. Times when boundaries were tested because kindness was mistaken for unlimited tolerance. This realization does not arrive as guilt at first. It arrives as awareness. And awareness is the beginning of respect. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is the iron mind in action. Emotional mastery, internal control, the ability to step away without collapse. That mastery is felt, even when nothing is said. Your silence becomes a spotlight, not on who you are, but on how the dynamic functioned. Patterns emerge. Inconsistencies become visible. Expectations once assumed now feel heavy. This is old Stoic wisdom playing out in modern relationships. Comparison begins naturally, not because you asked for it, but because the mind seeks reference points. She compares your composure to emotional reactions she has seen elsewhere, your restraint to frantic behavior she has experienced before, your dignity to patterns that lacked self-respect, and in that comparison something becomes clear. You are different, not louder, not forceful, not demanding, just grounded, centered, self-contained. You did not chase validation. You did not collapse under pressure. You did not abandon yourself to preserve connection. You walked away not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself. This is how Stoicism win moments are created, quietly, without announcement. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." In modern life, bravery often means knowing when to stop explaining, knowing when to let actions close the chapter, knowing when peace is stronger than persuasion. A calm exit leaves unanswered questions, and unanswered questions linger. They sharpen memory. They invite reflection. Once seen, they cannot be unseen. This is where either regret or respect begins, not because you demanded it, but because you allowed reality to speak. An iron mind does not chase reassurance. It does not argue for worth. It does not react impulsively to misunderstanding. It moves forward aligned with principle, and alignment commands respect, even in silence. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When your why is self-respect, your how becomes calm withdrawal instead of emotional entanglement. This reshapes how you are perceived. The lesson for men is direct. Master your reactions. Choose peace over persuasion. Let absence do what presence could not. Walking away calmly is not about withdrawing care. It is about redirecting it inward. Because when you respect yourself enough to leave with dignity, others eventually feel that respect too, even if it takes time, even if it arrives quietly. The silent mirror always does its work, and it never lies. Section number 4. The emotional imprint. There is a kind of man a woman does not forget. It is not the man who spoke the loudest. It is not the one who explained himself into exhaustion. It is not the one who chased clarity while losing himself along the way. Memory is not shaped by noise. It is shaped by contrast. That is where the emotional imprint begins. When a man walks away peacefully, without bitterness, without performance, without trying to prove anything, something rare happens inside her mind. Something rooted deeply in female psychology. Something no argument could ever force and no apology could ever buy. Silence, when chosen with intention, speaks with authority. The moment you leave calmly, you remove your energy from a space that quietly depended on it. She does not feel anger first. She feels absence. Absence is powerful, not as punishment, not as manipulation, but as consequence. Now she sits with the quiet where your consistency once lived, where your patience showed up every day, where your effort was steady and reliable. The mind does not rush to fill that space. It studies it. It revisits it. It asks questions it never asked while you were still available. This is one of the most misunderstood psychology tricks men overlook. Persuasion fades, realization stays. When you stop trying to convince her of your worth, she finally has the room to feel it on her own. Women do not bond more deeply through pressure. They bond through perception, through reflection, through the emotional meaning they assign after the moment has passed. That is why the man who leaves with dignity creates a deeper impression than the man who stays too long hoping to be chosen. This is not about coldness. Do not confuse calm with distance. It is about clarity. Be clear enough to know when effort turns into imbalance. Be strong enough to stop pouring into a place that no longer pours back. When you walk away peacefully, you are not rejecting her. You are choosing yourself. That choice echoes. It echoes late at night when distractions fade. It echoes when she meets someone new who reacts impulsively where you stayed grounded. It echoes when another man seeks attention instead of standing firm. Slowly, quietly, you become the reference point. Not because you were flawless, but because you showed emotional control. Emotional control is deeply respected in female psychology, far more than dramatic intensity, far more than emotional pleading. Intensity can feel overwhelming. Composure feels safe. Safety is unforgettable. When you leave without resentment, you remove the storyline she expected. She expected an argument. She expected guilt. She expected emotional bargaining. Instead, she received silence paired with self-respect. That disrupts the narrative her mind was prepared to defend. Once that narrative collapses, truth steps in. Truth says your presence was not guaranteed. It was earned. Losing it reveals its value. Women can forget the man who tried too hard to be loved. They remember the man who knew when to stop trying alone. This is where how to fall in love becomes misunderstood. Love does not deepen through chasing. It deepens through contrast, through loss, through realization. Your peaceful departure becomes a mirror she cannot avoid. It reflects what she dismissed, what she delayed, what she assumed would always be there. This is not about regret. It is about recognition. She now sees you differently, not as the man who wanted her approval, but as the man who valued himself enough to leave without destroying the connection. That maturity becomes the standard, even if she never says it out loud. The mind compares silently. Every future interaction is measured against the calm you carried, the restraint you showed, the strength you embodied. Emotional imprint is created by absence paired with integrity, not by dramatic exits or emotional speeches. When you cared deeply and then chose peace, you demonstrated balance. Balance is magnetic. That magnetism lingers long after words disappear. This is one of the most powerful psychology tricks rooted in female psychology. Respect grows when a man shows he can walk away without bitterness. Attraction often follows respect. You are no longer a memory of effort. You become a symbol of emotional steadiness. When she sees you thriving quietly, not announcing, not proving, not seeking validation, the contrast sharpens. You did not fall apart. You did not beg to be understood. You did not chase closure. You simply moved forward. Forward movement signals confidence. Confidence without arrogance feels rare. Rare things are remembered. This is how to fall in love in its deepest form, not through attachment, but through impact, through a presence that is felt more strongly in its absence. When she encounters men who react emotionally instead of responding thoughtfully, your calm becomes louder. When she encounters inconsistency, your steadiness stands taller. When she encounters attention without depth, your silence speaks again. You did not need to explain your value. You demonstrated it through restraint. This is the lasting lesson of a peaceful exit. Do not argue when clarity is enough. Do not chase when balance is broken. Do not stay where effort is one-sided. Be calm, be grounded, be decisive. Walking away peacefully does not make you forgettable. It makes you unforgettable. The emotional imprint you leave is not built on drama. It is built on self-respect. Time does not erase this imprint. It sharpens it. Women rarely remember the men who tried endlessly. They never forget the man who knew when to stop trying and chose himself instead. In that moment, without raising his voice, without closing his heart, he taught a lesson her mind carries forward quietly and permanently. That is the power of leaving in peace. Rooted in psychology tricks, shaped by female psychology, understood only by men who truly know how to fall in love without losing themselves. If this message resonated with you, don't just listen. Act. Like the video, subscribe for more grounded wisdom, and share it with a man who needs this reminder. Now comment this below to lock the lesson into your mind. Walking away in peace is the highest form of self-respect. Section number 5. The fear of replacement. A woman may feel very little when you chase her. She may feel almost nothing when you over-explain your intentions, replay conversations, or try to prove your worth through effort alone. She may feel unmoved when you try to win her back with words, promises, or emotional persistence. Attention given freely often fades into the background. Effort without boundaries becomes invisible. But when you leave quietly, when you stop trying, stop fighting, stop pushing, stop pleading, something shifts inside her. A new feeling wakes up. Not drama, not panic, awareness. And with awareness comes a specific fear that cuts deeper than anger ever could. It is not the fear of losing attention. It is not the fear of losing influence. It is the fear of replacement. The fear that another woman, someone more perceptive, more appreciative, more emotionally aligned, will recognize your value faster than she did. The fear that everything she assumed would always be available will now be given elsewhere. This is where psychology becomes real. Not loud, not emotional, quiet and unavoidable. When you remove yourself calmly, you force the mind to fill the silence with truth. This is why a peaceful departure carries so much weight. A man who leaves in anger looks unsettled. A man who leaves emotionally looks reactive. A man who leaves loudly looks wounded. But a man who leaves calmly looks resolved. He looks finished, not defeated. He looks like someone who has clarity, not confusion. That distinction matters more than most men realize. Calm communicates readiness. Calm suggests forward motion. Calm implies options. And that realization unsettles her because she understands something instinctively, even if she never says it aloud. Men with discipline, emotional control, standards, and direction do not remain alone for long. A man who knows who he is, who respects his time, who values his energy, and who walks away without bitterness sends a powerful signal. He is not stuck. He is not broken. He is not waiting. He is moving on. That is the profile of a high-value man, and women recognize this pattern quickly. Such men are noticed. They are chosen. They are remembered. Your peaceful exit does something specific. It signals emotional stability. It says you are not resentful. It says you are not stuck in the past. It says you are already rebuilding. You must understand this. Emotional composure is deeply attractive because it suggests safety, leadership, and maturity without saying a word. When you walk away quietly, you activate masculine energy that does not demand attention but commands respect. Do not explain. Do not justify. Be calm. Be grounded. That is the message. Now her imagination takes over. She imagines another woman receiving what she overlooked. Your steady presence, your reliability, your protection, your consistency, your affection, your guidance, your emotional steadiness. She imagines another woman benefiting from your growth, your patience, your direction. Not because you are perfect, but because you are intentional. This is where the fear sharpens. It is not about competition. It is about realization. She does not imagine being replaced by just anyone. She imagines being replaced by someone who sees what she did not, someone who values your presence instead of testing it, someone who meets your effort with appreciation rather than expectation. That realization does not come from insecurity. It comes from awareness. Awareness is uncomfortable because it removes denial. A woman watching a man walk away peacefully understands something at a psychological level. He is already detached. He is already choosing himself. He is already reorganizing his life without her at the center. And a man who chooses himself becomes attractive to others without trying. That is not arrogance. That is alignment. This is why men who cultivate masculine energy naturally attract women without persuasion. Calm confidence speaks louder than pursuit. This awareness forces reflection, quiet reflection. Questions begin to surface when the distractions fade. Did I misread him? Did I take something meaningful for granted? Did I push away someone genuine? Did I assume he needed me more than I needed him? Did I think he would always stay? Did I mistake his patience for permanence? Will another woman receive the version of him I never fully appreciated? These questions linger because they point to possibility, not control. She does not regret losing influence. She regrets losing access to a man who had options. Women understand the difference between men who are everywhere and men who are selective, between men who chase and men who choose. When you walk away calmly, you shift categories in her mind. You are no longer the man trying to keep her. You become the man another woman will be grateful to receive. This is where status changes without announcement. You do not need to label yourself a high-value man. Your behavior does that for you. Walking away peacefully places you into a different mental frame. You become associated with rarity, with discernment, with self-respect. These qualities are not loud, but they are memorable. Your departure does more than remove you from her daily life. It places you into the realm of what could have been. And the human mind values two things intensely: what it can no longer access and what it once had but failed to protect. When you leave calmly, you become both. That is why silence carries weight. That is why absence speaks. Her fear of replacement is not jealousy in the dramatic sense. It is realization. The realization that you were not pursuing her because she was exceptional by default. You were pursuing because you were offering her the opportunity to be exceptional in your life. That opportunity required recognition. She missed it. Someone else will not. This is where men misunderstand attraction. You do not attract women by trying harder. You attract by standing firm in your values. You attract by knowing when to stop giving without return. You attract by choosing peace over persuasion. That is where masculine energy is felt most clearly. Quiet strength, clear boundaries, forward movement. Do not chase when clarity has already spoken. Do not explain when actions are enough. Do not linger where effort is one-sided. Be decisive, be calm, be intentional. That is how you protect your energy and your future. A peaceful departure is not rejection. It is alignment. It is choosing growth over attachment. It is understanding that connection without mutual effort leads nowhere. When you walk away calmly, you do not diminish yourself. You elevate your position in her memory and in your own life. This is why women remember the men who leave with dignity, not because they wanted distance, but because they demonstrated self-respect, not because they lacked care, but because they refused to care alone. That balance is rare. That balance is powerful. And here is the truth many avoid. A man who can walk away peacefully is a man who can build again. He can love again. He can lead again. He can be chosen again. That is why her fear does not scream. It sits quietly. It observes. It understands. So do not announce your exit. Do not dramatize your decision. Let your silence carry meaning. Let your forward motion speak. Be the man who chooses himself without resentment. That is the man women respect. That is the man others notice. That is the man who naturally becomes a high-value man, who continues to attract women, grounded in calm masculine energy, long after the door has closed. Section number 6, the restoration of self-value. Walking away peacefully is not retreat, it is restoration. When a man understands this, he moves through life with a different gravity, because choosing calm distance instead of loud engagement signals something rare, unshakable self-value, the kind that does not beg, does not explain, does not chase. Psychology confirms this truth. People respect what does not need their approval, especially in modern life, where attention is cheap and dignity is scarce. When a man exits a situation with composure, no slammed doors, no final speeches, no bitterness, he communicates a powerful message without saying a word. I know who I am, and I will not trade my peace for validation. That message lands deeply, especially with women. Respect grows where emotional control lives, not where noise and persistence try to force outcomes. This is Old Stoic wisdom in action, the same wisdom that has guided strong men for centuries. Mastery begins with the self, not others. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That truth still wins today. Stoicism win. Moments are quiet victories, moments where you walk away whole, in relationships, in conversations, in conflict. The man who can leave peacefully becomes unforgettable, not because he tried harder, but because he refused to abandon himself. Psychology calls this perceived value. Humans assign worth to what is not easily accessible. When your presence is not guaranteed, it is respected more, not less. Scarcity paired with integrity creates admiration. This is where the iron mind is forged, not in confrontation, but in restraint, not in proving, but in choosing. Modern men already know this once reminded. Chasing drains you. Explaining weakens your position. Overinvesting erodes attraction. Walking away peacefully resets the balance. Instantly, decisively. This is not manipulation. It is alignment. Living where your actions match your standards. Standards create boundaries. Boundaries create respect. Respect creates admiration. Viktor Frankl said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Sometimes the strongest move is not to stay and fix, but to step back and preserve inner order. Women respond to emotional safety. Emotional safety comes from a man who is not reactive, not needy, not entangled in outcomes. He is grounded, present, willing to leave when alignment disappears. In today's world of endless messaging and emotional oversharing, the man who says nothing and is still understood stands apart. Silence backed by self-respect speaks louder than explanations. This is why walking away peacefully restores respect. Sometimes interest, always self-respect. You did not abandon your values. Values are the foundation of lasting confidence. Confidence that sharpens with age. Old Stoic wisdom reminds us again, dignity is not given, it is protected. When you live from that place, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your behavior already has. This is Stoicism win in real life. The iron mind observes, decides, moves with purpose. Purpose is calming. Purpose is respected. Psychology confirms what ancient thinkers knew. People admire those who are emotionally regulated and willing to let go. Letting go signals abundance, not loss. Strength, not insecurity. When you walk away peacefully, you leave a psychological echo. You were not trying to take. You were offering presence and withdrawing it when respect disappeared. That choice lingers. It forces reflection. Contrast creates clarity. Lao Tzu said, "He who knows when enough is enough will always have enough." Knowing when to walk away is knowing your value. Knowing your value is the cornerstone of masculine self-respect, especially later in life. Peace becomes power. Calm becomes authority. Restraint becomes leadership. Apply this now. Stop explaining where respect is missing. Stop chasing draining conversations. Stop negotiating boundaries. Exit cleanly, kindly, without resentment. Resentment poisons you, not them. A peaceful departure keeps your inner world intact. When your inner world is intact, your presence carries weight. Weight creates respect. Respect attracts. This is mastery, quiet victory, a stoicism win that compounds over time. Each time you choose dignity over drama, you strengthen your iron mind. And an iron mind builds an iron life. That is why women respect you more when you walk away peacefully. You showed them and yourself that your worth is non-negotiable. If you understood this, you're no longer chasing respect, you're claiming it. Walking away peacefully is the moment a man proves his value without words. It's the line between needing approval and commanding admiration. If this message hits you, don't stay silent. Comment this below and lock it in. I know my worth and I walk away with peace. Section number 7, the loss of emotional control. When you choose not to argue, not to beg, not to chase, something quiet but powerful happens inside the dynamic between you and her. Conflict survives on emotional fuel, and you simply stop supplying it. That is not avoidance. That is mastery. Don't mistake silence for weakness. Be clear about this. When you walk away peacefully, you are not losing ground. You are reclaiming it. You are saying, without a single dramatic word, I govern myself. And in the realm of female psychology, self-governance is magnetic, deeply unsettling in the best way, and impossible to ignore. Most emotional battles are not really about the topic at hand. They are about control, about who can pull a reaction from who can provoke, who can disturb the inner balance of the other person. The moment you refuse to react emotionally, the moment you don't raise your voice, don't defend your worth, don't over-explain your intentions, you remove the lever she may unconsciously be pulling. Suddenly, the entire structure of the interaction shifts. Be calm, be steady, be unshaken. Many people are conditioned to expect resistance, pleading, or emotional fireworks. When none of that arrives, when instead they meet quiet certainty, it creates a psychological vacuum that forces reflection. Not because you tried to teach a lesson, but because your absence of reaction speaks louder than any argument ever could. This is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks men can use. Not to manipulate, but to protect their dignity and allow respect to grow naturally. Don't argue your value. Demonstrate it through composure. Respect rarely grows where emotions are chaotic. It often blossoms where control is gently released. Here is the paradox most men miss. When you stop trying to win the argument, you often win the respect. She no longer feels she can steer your emotions. That realization lands deeply, especially in female psychology, where emotional influence is often confused with emotional connection. When that influence disappears, curiosity replaces certainty, questions replace assumptions. Your calm exit echoes louder than your loudest defense ever did. Walking away peacefully is not passive. It is decisive. It is choosing peace over performance, self-respect over validation, clarity over chaos. You must understand this clearly. Many conflicts continue not because they matter, but because both sides are emotionally invested in being seen, heard, or proven right. When you quietly step out of that loop, you break the rhythm. You disrupt the emotional dance. Disruption forces awareness. Don't try to explain yourself into respect. Respect does not respond to explanations. It responds to boundaries. Your ability to disengage without bitterness, without sarcasm, without resentment, signals a depth of maturity words cannot fake. This maturity is deeply attractive, especially to women who are emotionally perceptive. It shows you are not ruled by impulse, not driven by the need to win, not dependent on her emotional response to feel stable. Be grounded. Grounding is rare. Rarity creates value. Value invites respect. This is where how to fall in love quietly enters the picture. Love that lasts is not built on emotional tug-of-war. It is built on safety, predictability, and calm strength. When you walk away peacefully, you communicate that you can be present without being reactive, connected without being consumed, strong without being loud. Don't chase resolution in the heat of emotion. Heat clouds judgment. Be patient. Patience reveals character. Character lingers long after the argument fades. Here is the subtle truth few people say out loud. When you remove yourself emotionally, she is left alone with her own emotions. That can be far more confronting than any argument you could offer. There is no mirror to bounce off, no resistance to push against, no emotional feedback loop to sustain tension. In that silence, reflection often begins, not because you demanded it, but because you allowed it. That allowance is powerful. This is not about punishment or coldness. It is about choosing dignity over drama. Dignity commands respect without asking for it. When a man can walk away peacefully, he shows he trusts himself. Self-trust is contagious. It invites others to reassess how they treat him. In female psychology, Reassessment is the doorway to renewed respect and deeper attraction. Don't underestimate how unsettling calm can be to someone expecting chaos. Calm forces honesty. Honesty reshapes perception. Perception determines value. That is why psychology tricks rooted in self-control work far better than persuasion or explanation. They operate quietly, beneath the surface, where real change happens. Be consistent. One calm exit can be dismissed as coincidence. Repeated composure becomes your reputation. Reputation shapes how people approach you before a word is spoken. When a woman knows she cannot pull you into emotional turmoil, she begins to meet you with more care, more thoughtfulness, more respect. She senses that access to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. That is how to fall in love without force, without games, without emotional exhaustion, by being a man who knows when to engage and when to step back, a man who understands that walking away peacefully is not the end of connection. Often, it is the beginning of a healthier one. Respect grows because control quietly disappears. Attraction deepens because safety takes its place. Love, if it comes, arrives not through conflict, but through calm strength, steady presence, and the quiet confidence of a man who knows his worth and refuses to trade it for temporary emotional victory. Hey, my friend, thanks for staying with me until the very end. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. Your peace is your power. You don't earn respect by holding on, explaining yourself, or proving your worth to someone who can't meet you halfway. Real respect comes when you know who you are, what you deserve, and you're brave enough to walk away without anger, without drama, and without regret. So here's my honest advice to you. Love deeply, show up sincerely, but never abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. When something starts costing you your dignity, your clarity, or your inner peace, that's your sign. Walking away calmly isn't weakness. It's strength under control. It's a man choosing self-respect over emotional chaos. Remember this, anyone can stay and suffer. Only a strong man can leave with peace. And that kind of strength is always felt, always remembered, and always respected. Take care of yourself, walk in confidence, and never forget your value. I'll see you in the next video.